But these are not things that people are playing with. These are things that people talk about, they storyboard out, they do post-production, and then they create the fantasy that this is actually happening. But Robert Downey Jr. is not seeing those heads-up displays or interacting with them. He's being told, look over here, look concerned, look concerned again. You know, and meanwhile, later on, they're going to add something. There is no interaction. There is just the sense that, well, maybe there would be. So nobody's working on that when they do that. Myron Kruger was much more advanced because Myron Kruger really was doing his pinch gesture. Now, let's talk about something else that relates to this. English, as a natural language, has two words for what are called deictic concepts, things that you don't refer to except by where they are. We have the word this, and we have the word that. This is the thing that's here, that is the thing that's there. And then somehow we need to construct sentences in such a way that, that you know what's going on with only two variables. American Sign Language, which is the language that non-hearing people generally learn in the US, has 9. It has that. It has a 3x3 grid. You talk about something there. You come on later in conversation. It's still there. And you can refer to it. It's a richer language. Why is it a richer language? Well, because through necessity, this group of people had to use that other part of their brains, the gestural part of their brains, which is intimately connected to the speech part of our brains. There's a lot of brain function overlap between those two. And so in some ways, that's a richer language. So I've been thinking about these things, and I've been frustrated by the problem that, that there is no future here yet, because the future is in the future. And so I've started asking myself the question, what would I do if it turned out that I could have the future here now? What would be my, what would I do with it? And how do I, like suppose I could, for example, you know, I put my finger in the air and I can just start drawing right in the air. Like if I could just do that, I mean, of course I can't do that, but if I could do that and just had some kind of three-dimensional thing and I could sort of make it twirl around and it's right there in front of me, behind me, or I could get rid of it, you know, if I don't want it anymore. If you're a teacher and you're able to do this kind of face-to-face communication, what would you do if you had that kind of capability? I mean, suppose, for example, I've become very interested since I have arrived here in the language here. It's an incredibly rich language. And as a graphics person, of course, I'm fascinated by the fact that the language is so highly pictorial. So, for example, there's let's say, what's that? Anyone tell me? Ren. That's ren is the word for people, for human. And it's a fascinating word because it's a very beautiful, very simple symbol. And yet it has this long history. If you actually look at the history of this thing, if you go back, say, 1,500 years to the Li Shu era, where you see it was a very graceful kind of symbol. And there's a reason it was a more graceful symbol because the history goes way back. I mean, this language is an amazing language. And I'd love to be able to just teach people that and just show it to them right here in this space where I'm interacting with this. If you go back, say, a little further than that to the, my pronunciation is terrible, but the Xiao Xuan era, I believe, where it looked like this. And then a little earlier than that, say about probably closer to 2,000 years ago, the Dajuan era. And then you go back and back and back, and you finally end up back 2,500 years ago when these were the very, very first written symbols that were carved onto these oracle bones. And it was the beginning of, as far as we can tell, a whole rich era. And what's fascinating is that this is not some dead language. There's a direct connection between this, which looks like a person. And you can see how the modern symbol has actually just evolved right from that. And to me, that's incredibly exciting. And I'd love to be able to talk about people about that directly. And other things I'd like to talk to people about as a teacher and engage them is, suppose I throw out some abstract question in math. And students have a tremendously difficult time at a certain age range, say 11 to 14, middle school in the US, in being able to relate what they see visually with the symbolic representation of how to prove something that's true about something mathematically. So for example, suppose we want to talk about, say, a triangle. So let's see if we can draw a triangle. Okay, and we want to ask some really simple question of this triangle. We want to say, okay, what's the area of that triangle? Well, you might know the area of the triangle because you learned it in school, but how would I give you an intuition so that you really deep down know, and I can talk to you about it? So I say, okay, well, one way to approach this is, well, around this triangle we can always say, well, the triangle is actually surrounded by some rectangle. And you already know, I mean, by definition, it's very intuitive, that the area of that rectangle is base times height. You know this. So how do we deal with the fact that we have a triangle and we have a rectangle and we just kind of want to do, well, we can actually do a little construction here. And we can say, okay, so now we're starting to get somewhere. It's still the same shapes, but we've just added a little to it. Maybe we can sort of like color things in a little, and we can say, okay, sorry about the jitter. You know, this future technology actually isn't like worked out totally yet. There's still bugs in it. After a while, it warms up, and then that stops happening. And then we say, okay, so I've got this shape and this shape, and I've got this shape and this shape, and I can actually just like kind of like do a little flip there, and now I can see I've assembled a whole identical shape, and I can say, oh, okay, 1/2 base times height. I get this. This is totally cool. So this is the kind of thing I'd like to be able to do directly talking to a student. I'd like to be able to just manifest things for them. So for example, it's really nice to be able to draw in the air, but maybe I want to do something a little more interesting. Suppose I want to say, okay, let's take this and let's say, I want to take this and do something with it. I want to say, make it into something, you know, a little more substantial. I want to give it some properties. Maybe it's a bubble, you know, and it's floating off. And before it floats off, maybe I want to like pop it. Ooh, that felt good. And you know, and I have this great, you know, I have this future technology. I haven't really mastered it yet, and it's like, you know, it's got this kind of like, you know, I think there's probably radiation issues if I put my hand in here for too long, but I'm just gonna try not to do that too much. But I can also do things like let's say I want to describe something in topology. It's notoriously difficult to explain certain topological topics to people because when they're looking up at some 3D screen, you can't actually gesture and actually move around that object. It's really hard. And I want to put those things together. I want to be able to say, let me just draw some simple shape for you. So something really simple. And you say, okay, so this is nice. I've got a nice little wireframe. But I want to do better than a wireframe. I want to sort of manifest it. I want to do something like maybe get it moving, perhaps. So now I've got a nice little rotating cube. And I want to ask the question, suppose I want to relate this cube to other fundamental shapes. I want to say, well, you know, there are the 5 perfectly regular polyhedra. Can we relate them to each other? Could I go from this to its dual shape? Maybe I could just kind of gesturally like squeeze on it or something, you know, and go through a sphere, and oh, I get the octahedron. Because, of course, the octahedron is the dual, and people can actually see how the face turns into a vertex, and each vertex, which is connected to 3 faces, turns into a face with 3 sides. So we can see that. In fact, if you sort of let's just sort of undo this, we can sort of whoa, and in fact, it goes right through a sphere in the middle because the sphere is kind of the non-shape that all these shapes kind of come out of. And now you start getting an intuition for this. Suppose, for example, I want to talk about some topic in electricity. Let's put something up here. Let's say an electric circuit. So a very simple electric circuit. This is basically beginning electricity. And of course, if you close the switch, things start flowing, and you see, now it's an interesting question of which way should things flow? And you can actually talk about that. Let's open the switch, okay? We'll open the switch here and stop it from flowing, and like think about this for a moment. Should things flow from negative to positive or from positive to negative? Well, it turns out that one of our great Americans, can anyone name who that is, who made the mistake? Who got it wrong? Nobody knows? Oh my God. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was doing early experiments in electricity and needed to describe this concept of stuff flowing. And he didn't know about electrons. He couldn't see electrons. He had no experimental apparatus that would tell him about the structure of the atom. So he said, well, the thing that flows is the thing that he calls the positive charge. And so things are flowing from positive to negative. And so you've got this entire history where we now call charge, even today, as this thing flowing in the wrong direction because one guy got it wrong 200-something years. Very smart guy. He got a lot of things right. The Constitution was pretty good, and various other things. But this one he got wrong. And you can actually talk to people about that. You can explain to them, you can go back and forth, et cetera, and then build other concepts on top of that. So this is a very, very powerful thing. Now, what other concepts might benefit from just directly, if we could do it, just directly saying, look, I'm just going to show this to you. I mean, I've got the world as my laboratory here. So let's try something else. Let's try a different topic entirely. Let's say, no, I'm going to make a better one of these. Okay. I think I have a better way of doing this. So let's, so that's a very simple shape, and I can just sort of like manifest that. Let's do something. Let's hit it, And so this is a pendulum. Now, as many of you know, because it's a pendulum, how fast it moves is related to that length right there. And one of the nice things about being able to have, a make-believe futurist projector is that we can start saying, okay, suppose we stop this, okay, and then we just kind of pull it down, and we say, let's say we made it twice as long, and we say, well, in fact, we could actually start showing people that there is a very specific relationship, and the relationship of the period to the length is the square root. So, in fact, now that it's twice as long, it is going 1.415, or 1.428, et cetera, faster. So you can see if you slow it down again, and you push this up, and then you start it swinging again, it'll go faster again. Because this is a fundamental concept. Now, reading that equation in a book is one thing. But actually being able to directly say to somebody, hey, man, look, I'm going to show you, and this is what it does, is a much more powerful concept. Now, one of the things I really like about this face-to-face communication between people is there's space between people. And space between people is, it's three-dimensional. See, my hand is really big. Now my hand is really small. Now my hand is really tiny. And I love that we can do that in real life, that we have this sense of it's mine, it's yours, it's shared in between. And it's really nice to be able to say, how could we use technology to start playing around in that space? So let's say I'm trying to do say something in or let's not do that. Let's say something I'm trying to do something in. Let me think. What's the best topic to do next? I know. I got this one. This is a good one. So let's say I want to talk about something related to astronomy, and I want to just kind of make a little planet right here. Okay, it's like a little planet. Little people live on this planet. It's a wonderful science fiction-y place. It's got rings. It's very cool. I can give it an orbit. And suddenly, whoa, that planet is using that space. Like it's here, and it's like it's over there, and it's here, and it's there. And it's like really cool. And then you could communicate with the people on this planet. You could learn their culture. You could sort of start teaching about, exobiology. Or, you could just be God the Destroyer and just like, kill them all. I don't know. Because I know I shouldn't do that, right? We could have talked to them. So now, one of the things that's sort of a theme about this, and a theme that's actually very important for teaching in general, is how do you make the invisible visible? one of the wonderful things about computer graphics is one of the first things computer graphics tried to do was simulate things, phenomena, magnetic lines of force, wind flow, things that we know are there, we can measure them, but we can't see them. Our eyes are not equipped to see those things. Wouldn't it be wonderful if in the space right here, we could start seeing the unseeable? So let's see if we can build something that helps us do that. Okay, let's just try. All right, I'm just going to make a little mechanism here, fix it up a little. And so this is, I can manifest this as a little, little fan. I can let's get it going. Okay, so I have a little fan here. And let's try to use this as an instrument to try to do a little physics. So we can take this thing and we can maybe put it up there. And now let's say I'll use my thumb. You know, so I've got a magic thumb. And I'll just take my thumb and I'll start streaming particles from my thumb. And sure enough, you run the physics simulation, and what happens is it starts creating a somewhat imperfect tornado. And this is actually just what the physics says. Now, my physics simulation is really bad, so it's not doing it very well. But it kind of gives you the idea of if you actually started having someone like, again, as Bill said, if you started taking someone like Yo Stam and throwing him at something where he could really just talk to you directly right there live and interact with you as a teacher, he could teach you a whole bunch of things that would be very exciting. So what about computer science? I mean, just about everyone here is more or less a computer scientist, right? If you're doing computer graphics research, you got to program, you got to learn about computer science. How do we teach concepts of computer science to people? I don't really know in general, but I think we can start building things that kind of give people an intuition. Let's say, okay, let me make a nice little rainbow here. And say this rainbow represents a set of objects. And I would like to interact with this set of objects. Let's say we do an ordering on the set of objects. Now, we have a set of objects that's clearly out of order, but you know, I can interact with them. You know, wherever I go, it kind of knows about me, you know, this little floating projection world. And I can start doing things like explaining to people things like sorting algorithms. I can say, oh, let's say maybe I want to, I don't know, exchange these guys or exchange these guys. And I can start doing things like an exchange sort or a bubble sort or a shell sort or something else. And you start getting the means of directly saying, suppose you level up the number of objects and you go from 2 to 3 to 4. This sort will start going as an n squared algorithm. This sort will start going as an n log n algorithm. And you start seeing the power of that, and then start having the objects actually do it themselves. So one thing, though, that I really haven't talked about at all yet, I just haven't gotten to it yet, is who's going to live in this space? I mean, one of the intriguing things that I think the science fiction writers have been talking about is once you start creating a physical space, then it becomes possible to inhabit that physical virtual space. And it's one thing to see a character on a screen. It's like, oh, there's Mickey Mouse, and we're all entertained, and haha. But there's something different that starts happening if the character maybe starts showing up in our world. And that could be a good thing, could be a very scary thing. But let's see what we can do about that. Let's see if we can, you know, maybe I can just manifest something. Let's say I just sort of bring up, there's a little character. He happens to be a very happy character. He's generally a happy character. And so maybe we can have him like, I don't know, like follow my finger. There you go. Oh, there you go. Hey, look over there. Look over there. Oh. He's not very good at following. He's kind of a stupid character. But he's very happy. Really. No, he's like totally like confused, isn't he? But of course, if I take the finger away, then of course he's really an unhappy character. It's like, oh, there's no finger. What happened to the finger? So what would be really nice would be if we could somehow like reach in there and like try to engage him, like hello character, and he's like, oh, there you go. There's a guy there, you know, and now he's really happy again. So I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel better now because I've had my little therapy session with the fish, you know. And he's just like, just having a great time. And then he's like, okay, bye fish, bye fish. You know, the fish goes off. And it's like, whatever. So so he's still there. It's just he's off stage. You know, he's waiting for his cue. Like, I'm sure he'll come back at some point. But actually, what I'd like to do now, because we only have a certain amount of time, is, and I want to use that time, is I'd like to engage the audience now in a little bit of a jam session about what would you do? Actually, if you could come here and take that, and I'm going to move over there and point it here. I'm going to take my coffee. I'm going to take my coffee. Yeah, I want you to point that camera to where I am. Just rotate it. I know it's very dangerous. Do you want help? If there's a big crashing sound, yeah, it's pretty good. So I should be centered. You see, so it's like this cool hall of mirrors. There's me, and then there's me, and then there's me, and there's me. It's like, so, thank you very much. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to actually take this last bit of time. And now, of course, my message is, and I think it's a very important message, my message is that Will Wright absolutely had it correct. You do not say, sorry, we can't talk about that yet because we haven't invented the holographic projector that floats between you and me, and it's only a movie. No, you don't say that. You say, we are the researchers. We are the people who come up with the future. You quote Bill Buxton saying, smart people, stupid interfaces. You know, you just focus on the people. And you say, however I can ask these questions, I got to start asking these questions now because these are human questions. These are not questions about technology. They're questions about how people work. And so for the formal part of this talk, I want to end it by just reminding you of what Will Wright said. It's in the box. And okay, maybe we can't open the box yet, but we have to learn how to look and figure out what's in the box. Okay, thank you. That was now you can applaud and we can ask questions and stuff. Okay, yeah. I'd also like to say that there was a team of people back both at NYU and at the MIT Media Lab who worked on helping with this. Notably, Murphy Stein and Charles Hendy at NYU and Xiao Xiao at Hiroshi Ishii's lab at MIT Media Lab. And some of what you saw was created by them. A lot of the infrastructure was just teaching me, like an old guy, how to actually like put together cables and equipment and all that, which was like definitely stretching my mind. I'm one of those people, right, who's like, oh, you just take a notebook computer and you plug it in, right? No, but this is like serious. This is like the real deal. It's very cool. That's an actual Panasonic camera. So does anybody, go ahead. I'm really interested in people like jumping in and suggesting things or talking about things. So let's make this a nice long interactive Q&A. Questions? Should they be coming up to the mic? How should it be working? Someone tell me.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. My question is, you highlighted the importance of face-to-face communication, and I completely agree with that. But at the same time, what we do is, as graphics people, is kind of taking us away from that, or making it easy not to be physically at the same environment.
Okay.
So is this like a contradiction? And like, how do we deal with that? For instance, one thing that comes to my mind is the movie Surrogates, Bruce Willis movie.
Right.
So like, for instance, people living in their rooms and everything is just going on through their minds. Is this, I mean, is what we do is going to end up in this, you think, or?
I think that all these technologies now are very early stage. This magical iPad and all these smartphones, they're very early stage. And the proof that they're early stage is that they're still keeping people away from each other. I think that when these technologies mature, people want to be with people. What is the #1 thing anybody wants in their life? They want to be with the people they want to be with. And that means, I mean, no, you know, think about any close relationship you have. You don't want to just be looking at that person through cyberspace. You want to be able to touch them. You want to be able to share a meal with them. You want to, there's part of your mind that is so connected with that physical connection. You could spend time away from them, but then you want to come back. And I do believe that as the technology allows us to do anything, what people will choose in the marketplace to go for, if they can, is to use it to be with the people they're with better. Of course, when you're away, you do the best you can, but it's not all about that. Anyone else? Okay.
It's actually a follow-up on what you said. Everything that you presented, aside eventually from the planet, you know, to teach and demonstrate, you could do it, you know, with the scissors and paper, the old-fashioned way. And I'm just wondering, like, at the beginning of the conference, there was for the technical papers, you could vote for questions, and you could put questions with your mobile phones or your iPad. And I can understand the point, because if you're shy, well, like I am, you know, it takes a lot of courage to put up a question yourself. But
and here you are in the front row.
And here I am. On the other hand, you know, you're in the same room. You're not actually listening to the presentation. You're trying to vote on other people's questions and type in a question. I mean, like he said, isn't it a contradiction, even what you presented?
I mean,
what would prevent, you know, a first grade teacher or a secondary teacher to just, you know, use models, do a pendulum, you know, just extend the cable?
Nothing would prevent them. I've spoken to a number of high school and middle school teachers and showed them this stuff and gotten their ideas, and they're very much part of the design process and what we think about. And what they say is, you really want face-to-face, engaged communication. The teacher should look at the face of the student should look at the face of the teacher, and they should be getting, are you really getting it? Is this really happening? You get some sort of approximation to that kind of with the blackboard or the whiteboard, but you're facing the wrong way. But as soon as they're all looking here, you just lose all that. I have to say that I don't know if I'm the only one. There was a time when I would teach my computer graphics class and nobody had a notebook computer. And I see people in the audience here, there you go, with notebook computers. And I have no idea if these students are listening. I mean, maybe they're listening. They may be surfing the web. They may be chatting with their friends. I think it's not you, of course. I think, as soon as I said to the person I pointed to, put the notebook computer away. It's like, I'm sorry, that was terrible. I shouldn't have done that. And I think that there's something incredibly wrong about people being in the same room and having no social cues that let each other know, I'm actually here with you, even if they are. That's just a temporary wrong direction that is going to get fixed because it's broken. And I don't worry about it now because it's going to be fixed. I'm trying to work on some of the ways to help fix that. It was so much more interesting when people actually were in my classroom and they were actually present, and I could teach to them because I saw whether they were getting it by looking at their faces. Any other? Oh, Bill?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, I certainly understand what you're saying about the applications or implications to social interaction and teaching, but isn't so much of what drives this industry, or this research rather, the entertainment industry? And wouldn't there have to be a fundamental shift in that mindset, or what would motivate that for the research to head in this completely different direction, it seems?
No, I think that on the larger scheme of things, I would have been very, very unhappy about the iPhone and the iPad because they're shiny and they've got these rectangles that have nice little rounded corners, and everybody's like, oh, I'm holding the future in my hand, and I just want one. And except that the problem there is that, you know, stuff that Bill and others were doing almost 30 years ago, which was really an advance almost 30 years ago, now is kind of like all you've got is a swipe and a pinch. These hands take up, where they connect to the brain is a very, very, very large part of our brain responding to like the sensations in these, just in our hands and our fingers. Forget the rest of the body, and all we have is a swipe and a pinch. I mean, it's horrible, really. And there's no pressure sensitivity, there's no subtlety, there's no like aroma. Musicians, you know, look at a musical instrument. Look at the subtlety of when you do the vibrato on a violin or the fretboard of a guitar. None of that. We get none of that. And our brains are really, really good at that. The thing, we should all look at musical instruments because their absolute example is survival of the fittest. They've evolved and evolved and iterated and sauteed and sauteed and sauteed over centuries, and the ones we have now are exquisite ways of the human body expressing things that the human brain can respond to. And to me, the most heartening thing by far is the Kinect. And the thing that's great about the Kinect is after initial kind of confusion, Microsoft realized that as soon as people were hacking into the Kinect, that it was a good thing. And they were like, oh, okay. And I know people at Microsoft, they were debating it. You know, like, oh, this is terrible. They're going to steal our IP. And then there were people like, yeah, go ahead. Let them do it. It's great. And sure enough, because the thing about having an affordable depth camera, and obviously it needed Microsoft to be able to do this in the marketplace, to be able to capitalize and say, we could even sell them at a loss because they're connected with our game properties, and to create a market for a disruptive input device. PrimeSense couldn't have done that on their own. It needed to be this larger ecosystem play. And now that they've done it, there is an affordable depth camera in anyone's hands who wants it in at least this part of the world. You know, in Hong Kong, if you're probably in Hong Kong, you buy them for $10, right? It's like, I don't know. We probably shouldn't talk about that. But all of my students have one. When we teach the vision class, Davi Geiger teaches a vision class at NYU, and every student does their projects with a Kinect. And the thing that's important about it is that, okay, it's rough. It's still not where it needs to be. It's first generation, but it's capturing your actual movement. It's Myron Kruger's wet dream. It's what he wished he had. And if he'd had that in 1982, it would have been wonderful to see what he had done with it. And this is important because it's about people. There's so much richness and bandwidth in that signal, and people haven't yet begun to figure out what's the right thing to do with it. So there are signs of hope. Bill, did you? Yeah.
No, just one quick comment, and well, two actually. The one on the music instrument side, I think, is really right. There's no accident. That's what I began my career doing. And I believe in technology, there's 3 levels of specification. There's normal specification, there's military spec, and there's musician spec. And of the 3, that's the highest and the most demanding, because there's no profession that has a longer history of expressing powerful creative ideas through a technological intermediary. And so if you just look at the nature of gesture and what's actually being used, you've got something like 200 joints in your hands. And what we use, as you say, are 2 points manipulation if we're really cool because we're pinching, or 1 if we're swiping. And we can do better. The comment, I think, that comes back to the earlier conversation about the visibility of activity that comes. The way I like to describe that is, in my home, and I know it wouldn't happen in anybody else's, your partner screams at you and says, Bill, you're always on your computer. Actually, it's not that. Bill, get off your damn computer. Right? And of course, that never happens in your house. But there's a really interesting thing. When I was growing up, I never heard my mother say to my father, who was also named Bill, Bill, you're always on your pencil. Now, it's funny, you laugh, but think about it for a minute. Everything you do with your computer today, your family, parents, did with a pencil. There's the same percentage of things involved that technology of the pencil that today involve the computer. But the question was, there were different, about location was different, the other ancillary activities, but you knew by location, by whether you're at the desk, because my wife doesn't know if I'm buying her a gift, planning a vacation, sending email, having an affair. Doing work, because the activity is dominated by the device. There's no visibility, and that's exactly the social thing you're speaking about. It's not the people who it's not the activity they're doing on the laptop. You have no idea what the activity is. The question is, how transparent or visible is it? It used to be with a pencil because of the secondary things. It's one of the strongest arguments for bringing of ubiquitous computing, but also to have multiple technologies so that we bring that visibility back, and what you're describing is certainly one of them. It's a really important point.
And in fact, one of the things I keep trying to figure out, and I have no idea whether Apple anticipated this or not, but by deliberately making a consumer-only device, it wasn't the Microsoft tablet PC, it wasn't a work device. The iPad was deliberately designed to be used by all those other people who aren't going to really, most of the time, be needing a keyboard. They're not coding, they're not part of the means of production, they're part of the means of consumption. And one of the things that happened as soon as it came out, and I wish I knew whether they intended it because it was awesome, was that people would come to meetings with their iPad and they'd put the iPad down flat on the table. Something that you can't do this with a notebook computer, just flat on the table. So everybody else in the room knew when I'm touching this thing, I'm scheduling something that came out of what we just said in the conversation.
However, strange as it may be, none of them can take notes with it because it doesn't support anything that would be vaguely described as digital ink. And
which is why they also need a far more powerful technology, a pencil.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Any order. I don't care. Ooh.
Well, I had a microphone a few moments ago, but Bill really did just address what I was going to ask about. Is I love reading books, and since I travel so much the last few years, I read all the time on my phone or my Kindle, and the interaction that I get, social interaction that I get with reading on a phone and reading on a book is completely different, although my action is exactly the same. So, but Bill just really did address that, and it's a big, I don't know how to fix that.
You're perceived as being more withdrawn from the social contract when you're holding an electronic rectangle in your hand than when you're holding a book.
Yeah, so should I just attach a piece of paper on the back of my phone to say, I'm reading some Peter Hamilton, and that'll engage the.
There needs to be an iPad cover that makes it look like a hardcover book.
It really does.
So nobody knows, you know. That's a marketable idea. Somebody should go and do that. Okay, so who else? Okay, whoever gets the microphone. I mean, I'll just let these people hand out microphones, and whoever has the microphone we just make it random as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
My observation is nowadays, young people or teenagers, they are actually multitasking when they communicate. Like they attend lecture, they actually have the WhatsApp, they go online, they do another subject's assignment at the same time. So how does, this kind of communication would impact the future of the type of contacts with people? Maybe Bill can actually help to advise a little bit, because my personal feeling is they are actually so engaged in multiple things rather than focusing just one-to-all or one-to-one, the face-to-face contacts. Just like in schools, tutorials, students are talking to the tutor. At the same time, they're doing the WhatsApps at the same time. So what do you think about it? Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I think it's clearly biologically the children are not different than they were when we were kids. There hasn't been any biological evolution. I think that probably the same sense of shock, dismay might have been experienced between, say, the pre-television generation and the post-television generation. I think that when you throw any technology at little kids, unlike us, it's too late for us. But children are actually these optimized learning machines. And what they learn is actually the definition of what humans are capable of learning. Natural language is the thing that little children not only learn but create. And so if little children don't learn it, it's not a real language. It's like it's going to go away, or they'll fix it. Like when they try to teach children Esperanto, the children just start fixing it to turn it into an actual language spontaneously. The guy who told me that we should all switch to Esperanto, like when we were drinking the other night, is probably like, no, Esperanto it's a great language, it's perfect. But no, I mean, children actually have this ability, and I think it's important not to be dismayed by it, but rather to observe it carefully and say, whatever they are doing is the capability that will then go into society, and when they grow up, they're going to do it better, having those skills, and they'll refine it. And it's just going to take generations for these things to work their way out. You introduce any technology, and it's wrong the first time because it hasn't gone through the filter of the little kids yet. And it's going to keep iterating and improving. So I wouldn't be panicked. I would trust, for the most part, most kids who have a healthy ego structure are still trying to spend their time hanging out with their peers because they know that's where the learning happens. And anything that supports that is actually feeding their minds in a way that's fundamentally healthy. We aren't always able to perceive that because there's now a language gap between us and them.
Okay, I kind of want to reiterate on the question before.
Okay.
The speaker said a lot of the legitimization of what happened in computer graphics came from the computer games and these kind of fields of sorts. So you now said that it would be just better if we had more face-to-face communication, and I see your point. But then again, 50 years ago or 100 years ago, they would say, oh, if we just had telephones, the world would be so much better. And it turns out, like, the world is still a violent place, and it's not the best utopian place that we wished for it. So what's your point in saying, if we can fix that, everything will be better? I don't think there's an inherent quality.
It's funny that you say that, you know, actually a lot of what I've learned about the evolution of languages came from this wonderful 1993 book, which was a sort of a compendium of research done by many people that was written by Steven Pinker called The Language Instinct. How many people have read that? If you hadn't, you really should. It basically gives us, I know it's a little bit out of date now, but it really is this wonderful state of the art of the field of what people understand about how we evolved to be this language-making creatures. And he's just come out with another book with lots and lots of facts and figures and evidence that shows that, in fact, the human race, as we go from our respective multiple Wild Wests and we go into these sort of stable nation states with treaties, we're actually becoming less violent. There is this strong historical trend over any time scale, from centuries down to decades, down to years, of we are becoming less violent and killing is going down. So the facts are actually bearing out that as we become technologically more advanced and we become more, actually I saw Steven Pinker give a lecture about this, and he says the reason that the United States and People's Republic of China do not go to war with each other is they won't go to war with us because, you know, we won't go to war with them because they make all our stuff. And they won't go to war with us because we owe them too much money. So it's actually much better for everybody just to try to solve the problem in trade. It's too expensive to kill each other. So this is, and he builds a very strong argument why this has been happening. So in fact, I actually do think there is a positive correlation between the way we've been evolving cultural, technologically, politically, et cetera, and we're a less violent species. There are facts that bear this out. Okay, are there, okay, yeah.
And I was just wondering, with all these video game questions and kids not paying attention, is there any reason you've designed the system so that only you can use this space, that there's not anyone else?
It's a very good question. Our actual research, of which this is just a little snapshot, it has a plan of, first, we need to understand. Okay, so one of the problems with a lot of HCI research, from my perspective, is that the way HCI research tends to proceed is they say, okay, we're going to make a recognition system. And so, okay, so now my system can recognize this gesture, or this gesture, or this gesture. And now what's just happened is that anything you do has to go through what my technology can support. And that may or may not have any relationship to what would be a natural communication thing for you. It gets worse if what you're trying to do is support communication between one person and another. Because now we're not even doing Google SketchUp, you know, I'm just talking to you and it's like, you know that person, they're a little like, you know, like this, or like this thing happened back then, or, you know, I built the whole thing. I'm like, how do we know what gestures to track? So what we're starting to do right now is we're allowing the system to actually have various degrees of tracking. From it's really literally tracked, like when I move my finger, those balls jump because actually the system was tracking them, to gestures that are purely theatrical gestures because I just want to get this idea across to the other person. And we're starting out doing it as a one-way system, as a teaching system, because it's easiest to do the research with the person using it being a person who doesn't have to keep learning the system from the ground up while we're iterating the technology. Sometime over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, we are then going to take what we've learned and we're going to make it more and more and more a symmetric system, where the teacher and the learner, or those people, everybody is communicating back and forth in an augmented way. But we don't know enough yet to do that. We have to be observing people first before we start making those kinds of decisions. But that's absolutely, the goal for this stuff is to be a two-way communication medium. Totally. Meanwhile, already in its current state, it's useful for distance learning. There are some studies that were done by my colleagues Jan Ploss and Bruce Homer back in New York that showed conclusively what you would suspect, which is when you try to do distance learning where there's a talking head and there's also whatever is the material, people feel engaged with a talking head, but they learn less than if you don't have the talking head because they're going like this. And they don't know where to look, and their attention is divided. And so that's a problem with the way it's done now. And we think something like this, if it's properly done, can get rid of that problem, even in the context of today's trying to teach people in other parts of the world. Okay, other questions?
Hi, yes. I'm very interested in sort of the privacy implications of all the new technologies. And even if we get to the point where technology is allowing us to interact within the same room, more and more they're being mediated by someone else. Like Diablo 3 is coming out, and if you want to play LAN with the guy right on the table next to you, you still got to do it through their servers. Mm-hmm. And cell phones and all of that. And I'm just interested in your idea of, is the private person a dinosaur? You know, I'm one of the few people who willfully don't have a cell phone because the country where I come from now requires that it needs to be registered in your real name, and everywhere you go, you're being tracked. And
it's interesting that just this morning, the International Herald Tribune, which is really the New York Times, spread around the world, was delivered to my hotel room, and one of the articles that was referred to on the front page is people opting out of Facebook. People just saying, I'm gone. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I don't care. You know, I don't want to know about your kitten's birthday party, as important as that might be. And so I think that it's very, very important to acknowledge that technology, this is very important, technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it value neutral. Technology is what we do with it. And the we is the most important word in that sentence. These are not problems that, look, your house has a lock on the door. That lock doesn't stop anybody from breaking in and stealing stuff. The lock is a symbolic gesture that tells them if you do break the window and do the latch and stuff like this, you've broken a social contract, you might go to jail if you get caught. It's not a physical lock, it's a symbolic lock. We all know people can break into your house if they want to, but it works. And the reason it works is not that we've built a technology that absolutely stops people from breaking into your house, but we've built a social construction that says the costs, the social costs of going around my lock are way too high. And I think we can never rely on technology for these things. It's always the social contract. It's the consumer. It's the citizen. They have to have a deal with their government. They have to say, I don't necessarily want the benefits of shareholders of a corporation to trump what I want. As you said, I can choose not to be your customer. I can start going to places that have alternatives. We need to speak up. It's not, technology is neither our friend nor our foe. It's all about us and the other people and whether we have the guts to do something about it. So there. And that's always been true. That's been true of all technologies through history. It's never the technology, it's us, the social contract. Another question? Yes.
Ken, yes. I got a little piece of your future of graphics. So it's very nice, the way, your speech was delivered using this kind of, interacting with kind of digital objects, right? And would it be more natural to actually interact with a physical being?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I can speak to that.
My point is that there's this kind of digital avatar of physical objects. I mean, I think would be more natural to have like a physical avatar of digital objects. That people have been talking about creating like a new cell phone, looking like a robot, or having a robot-like avatar. Reading your own email and the expression. Showing expressions to to the emails or whatever. So how do you put the can you project it into a larger context of all this kind of pieces?
everybody knows that an avatar actually is supposed to look like a 10-foot tall blue person, but I think we've all learned that in the last few years. But in fact, it's funny because there was a demo I really wanted to put in, but I just didn't get it working in time. So one of the reasons that I'm working with Hiroshi Ishii at the MIT Media Lab is his focus on tangible interfaces. So the thing that I wasn't quite able to get going well enough that I wanted to show it to you was I have these in my bag there. I have these two magnets. And I wanted to hold up the physical magnets, and you see the magnetic lines of force between them. And the point there is that those are physical magnets. And I want to be able to do the physics experiment where I'm holding the actual beaker and you're seeing the virtual fluid and I'm changing the properties and teaching you about the laws of thermodynamics with a physical object, with just a virtual flame in front of a real Bunsen burner. And I do think that absolutely that people will learn better when there's a mix of the physical things you can hold and you have this fundamental intuition about and the virtual augmentation of those physical things. It's a very important direction. I wish I'd been sort of more prepared to show examples of that, but what can I say? I went to the reception last night instead. So. You have the microphone again? Oh, okay. Who has the, so eventually get the microphone back to Bill, but meanwhile, who has a microphone now? Oh, I guess it's you. Okay.
So, I think that because the question came, it's just for you right now, and how do we get it when it's in between us and so on. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a couple things we can do. What we've always done is break problems down and try and deal with different parts using different techniques. So whereas with the technique that Ken showed, it's difficult to get it in practical terms between us. If you just take a large display and you make a table out of it, and I'm not trying to plug Microsoft Surface, but if you look at Surface, no, I'm seriously not, but if you look at Surface 2, it is just a table. And when it's between you, you do have a space that you can both see, and it's within your sight lines. So a lot of the transactions and the designs you would consider going back and forth work in that sense, and I think that work, as that is what Ken showed was being developed, they will merge down the road when they're mature enough, but you can get experience and gain insights. And perhaps the other thing I'd say is that Hiroshi started working on tangible interfaces when he was there working with George. He was in my lab at the same time George Fitzmaurice was starting to introduce that stuff. He called it graspable, but it's the same thing. And one of the things that Hiroshi did is he took one of our desks and started to put the tangible devices on. And so the way that you can start, so the idea of being able to see the magnetic field, force field around a physical object, you can do that today with the optical displays because of Surface, and Hiroshi's been doing stuff like that with these technologies for a while. So the techniques really are there. And I think the difference is that we have a lot of the pieces. And the challenge, and what I really appreciate that you've done today, Ken, is how do you establish an overarching narrative that helps us see the potential relationships among the pieces that are at our disposal today, that we can start to use that overarching vision to channel the work that exploits the potential today to achieve tomorrow in a much more coherent and much faster way.
Yeah, and actually, that's very good that you mentioned that, because I'd like to sort of finish a thought that I started saying near the start of my talk, where I said there's something that is between SIGGRAPH and SIGCHI. And Myron Kruger was right there. The Clearboard work that Hiroshi was doing in 1989 was there. A lot of early work that you were doing is there. And SIGCHI has focused very much on this question of, I need to get a task done. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to the computer. I am trying, an easy-to-use interface is Google SketchUp. But compare Google SketchUp with, say, playing an instrument. When Bill picks up an instrument and he plays music for you, he's making decisions in real time. He's doing jazz. When somebody is doing improv comedy in front of you, they're changing the story in real time. They're able to do actual real-time improvisation with a live audience in human time. You don't, even the easiest to use stuff, you don't want to watch anyone making something with Google SketchUp. That's not a means of communication. That's a, excuse me, I'm going to go off in my room now, and no one talk to me for an hour, and when I come back, I have this thing. And a lot of a lot of computer-human interfaces as a discipline has become about, I have to get this task done in personal alone time, and the person I'm talking to is not a person, it's a computer. And I think the focus of what I've been doing today, and Bill is alluding to it, is forget the computer. I'm not talking to a computer, I'm talking to you. I'm having a conversation with you, and we are humans, and this is real time, and this is happening now. I'm improvising a piano piece for you. Stop looking at the piano. The piano is not part of this. It's just the pencil that I'm drawing with. And I think what we haven't done enough yet is say, how do we promote real-time, natural, intuitive, face-to-face communication of people trying to talk to each other? And one of the things that's really disturbed me is with all of the decades of work in Kai, there's still nothing as good as a whiteboard, and for that purpose. And we can do better than how come we're not as good as a whiteboard. And so there's a purpose here that's about making the computer disappear on some level. It's just there to help us talk to each other. And that's where I think the interactive techniques and SIGGRAPH, this community that's about making visions for other people, it's really something we should pick up on that set of purposes, because nobody else is really addressing that properly. How are we doing with time, by the way? Are we good? I mean, yeah, we can keep going? Good, great, because people seem to be still asking questions. Or who has a mic, or who wants a mic, or who? Okay, yeah.
Your hand gestures are strong when you talk to us. Would you turn around and wave to yourself?
Hello.
So your hand gestures are triple strong, because we're getting this triple instant replay.
Especially down here.
At least for me. And, you know, that's more effective than if you were, yeah, well.
I'm sorry, I'm just having fun.
I was going to say, you're dancing.
Follow the coffee.
You can break into a break dance.
And there's that cool time delay, so I can actually get it so we're going opposite directions. Wow, that is so cool. Me and my posses. Yeah, it's great. Oh,
it's actually my question is, did you plan this, or is it serendipity? And serendipity, to me, is an important part of this personal interaction. So.
Well, I actually deliberately planned that there would be two parts of the session, and the first part would be that you would be drawn to that because there wouldn't be an interaction, and the second interactive part, you'd see them together, which is why I had them turn the camera.
But the lag and the triple replay is serendipity.
Sure, yeah. It's good. I was trying to make it so that would happen before I did it, and there were these technical problems. So I'm just saying, it's the best I could do. Yeah. Okay. Ah, Don Greenberg, okay.
Yeah, first, Ken, I think it's a great presentation.
Thank you. Coming from you, that is a great honor. Thank you.
And as I'm sitting there with my pencil, notes,
right.
And I'm thinking of the power of what you just said, and I think there's a point which should be emphasized. And that is what you're just starting now is the ability to be able to have the dynamic face-to-face interaction, which is absolutely important, but simultaneously be able to deal with teaching modes which have multiple levels of abstraction. And I think it's the multiple levels of abstraction which is going to make the communication so much better. And the simple story which I really first heard from Nick Negroponte was when Marconi's grandson was asked and shown television and asked, after being told that it was based on his grandfather's inventions, which do you like better, radio or television? And this 13-year-old said radio. And Zworykin, who had invented television, was absolutely perplexed and said, why? And he said, because it has the better pictures.
Right.
And that is the point of what you just showed then. You actually showed only 2 levels of abstractions, but in fact there are multiple more which can then computer graphics community can add to in the future, and I think it's great, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, that's great. Okay, well that was stirring and inspiring. My mom always says that. My mom always tells me the best special effects she ever saw were on the radio, and I think she's, there you go. Okay. Yes.
Hi. I would have liked to ask you. It's very disturbing to speak in the mic.
Imagine there's 3 of me. Imagine how I feel.
I don't know which one to talk to. Actually, since I'm supposed to be the person looking at you like that through those eyes, I would like to see my messengers, my Facebook notifications, all my stuff coming in within the image, and so I would have liked you to show that maybe in the next talk next year.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there could turn out that there's this, augmented reality. There could be this like new phenomenon like AR blindness, where like you're looking right at the person, but you're really checking your email, and they can tell because you've got that kind of like look in your eye, Let me see if I can. This keeps going into sleep mode, so I need to wake it up. Okay, but someone could start the next question if they'd like.
Yeah. I have another point of trouble that I find in my life as I travel around, that I'm wondering if you see technology helping. So with the internet and all sorts of intermediaries, I can talk to people on the other side of the world in other languages, and translation programs can translate back and forth somewhat accurately so we can talk. But then I go to a country where I don't speak the language, I haven't spent the months learning, and I'm face to face with somebody, and I cannot communicate with them at all.
Which is really exciting, because you might actually have to learn another language. Wouldn't that be great? I'm just saying. It's like
it would be fantastic, but it's still somebody that I can't communicate face to face with.
That's true, yeah.
Without those months of...
I had an experience. The very first time I went to Brazil, and there was a guy from Germany, in fact, who I was trying to learn Portuguese. And now, eu falo português mais ou menos. I could speak it pretty well. He had this little device, and he could like type phrases in German, and it would show them in Portuguese, and he could read them. And he says, "Why are you bothering with this? I can use this device." And this was like over 15 years ago, and we just looked at each other in total mutual incomprehension, because I was like, "I'm here in Brazil. I want to learn this. I want to hang out with these people," and he was just, I'm a tourist. I want to see the mountains, and so. I think that there are different ways of being. I think there is, Google Translate is a wonderfully compelling thing, and it would be a tragedy if people actually thought that an augmented reality version of Google Translate was actually giving you what learning the language did. Having it would be a great convenience, but it's like the difference between social drinking and being an alcoholic. One is fun, and one is tragic. And we really must understand that these translation is a bad word. It's approximation. It's missing a lot. And I think that having multiple languages is one of the great legacies of being human. So go ahead and do that when it shows up, but don't not learn the other language in the rest of your time. So I don't want to endorse that we just put on the magic glasses and never have to learn Mandarin or Swedish or these beautiful languages. I think I have time for one more question, probably, because I think we're getting close to the witching hour here. So make it a good one. Any more questions? Oh, One more question, and then we're done. Okay.
Just a short question. What if we can simulate all the senses we have? Is that still face-to-face?
Oh, that would revolutionize the porn industry. Okay, on that inspiring note, thank you for coming. All right.